Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Party Invite podcast. I am your host Tegan. I'm joined by Vilos and Obsydianyte. Hey guys,
Oh, hey.
Hello.
and it's been a minute. Let's talk about it. Let's start with Blissin' Up. Let's start with something that made us smile because the reasons we haven't been recording have been that we've been busy, and during that busy time, we have a lot to talk about. Sid, yours is game related. Let's start with you.
Yay, video games. My Blissin' Up is, surprise, surprise, about Splatoon. So the Spring Fest is coming up soon, and the Spring Fest is basically like a very special thematic splat fest centered around the spring. So all of the idols are going to be dressed up in like springy pastel colors, except Off the Hook because they're too cool for that. And there's going to be like a bunch of costumes and accessories that you can have for your character that you get for free. You can actually just go to the news section right now on your Nintendo Switch and click on that article that talks about the Spring Fest and download those items for free. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, Splatfests are in general a lot of fun, but the ones that are specially themed, like the Spooky Fest, the Frosty Fest, and now the Spring Fest, are just like really, really good. And people are already on a tizzy about it because the question, because each Splatfest is you have to choose a side or whatever, is who is the softest, uh, little chicks, like baby chickens, little bunnies, or little bear cubs, and that's it. So yeah, that's what makes me happy.
Well, what's your team?
Springfest.
What's your team?
Oh, bunnies, little bunnies.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean I love bear cubs, but their fur is coarse. Gosh, words are hard. Their fur is coarse, so I don't think they're soft. And birds are just annoying, so screw that team.
Wow.
Wow. Well,
I just love how every choice comes up and you're like, duh.
Like,
like
do you even know me at all? Also, I've had a stuffed bunny from my grandma since I was like 3. That's 30 years. So I think I'm spiritually obligated to choose that.
absolutely.
Or
Uh,
my sarsaparilla. That is definitely just sarsaparilla.
well, I tell you what, I'm Team Bird, because my blessing up this week is that I played a well-known tabletop game called Wingspan. I'd only heard things about it, but didn't really know anything about the game itself. Went over to a friend's place. They had us watch a 15-minute how-to video, which I can't remember what channel we watched on YouTube, but it's a very popular channel. I know I've watched other video tutorials, like board game tutorials on there. Love that stuff because we were able to show up knowing the framework of the game. So I still had some questions and stuff, but the game was great. Onboarding was great. The burb stuff was great because each bird that you play, you're basically trying to build a bird ecosystem, and you draw cards to see what your like objectives basically are going to be. So mine was to have a bunch of passerine birds, a bunch of really small ones with a wingspan under 30 centimeters, and some other stuff. But the cards have a great illustration, the name, of course, of the bird, and then a little bit of flavor text. And it was great stuff. Some of the birds on there were not what I expected. Maybe their names were weird, or they only stay in a certain type of biome that I wasn't expecting, or whatever. But I really enjoyed that those are real birds, and the flavor text is actually teaching me stuff. So that was great. It's always nice to play a new board game, especially when your friends already own it and you don't have to pay $60 for it. It's not bad at all. But yeah, Wingspan, it's as good as people said, and I'm really looking forward to playing again now that I have a better idea of how to play. Like what some more of the cards are to know maybe what I'm playing against or anything else. But yeah, good stuff. And then Violus, let's throw it your way. What's good?
Yeah, so my listen up for today is kind of a cheat, because it's not on the now playing games list, but I played through Eternites, one of those games that released last year that I was really hoping was going to be good, JRPG slash dating sim, and it turned out to be a very good dating sim with very bad combat.
Oh
But
no.
suffice to say, it's a super indie. It was one guy created it. He did a lot of the work, and he got a few contractors to do some like minor animations and stuff because it has a pretty substantial amount of cutscenes and some really great key art for character interactions and stuff, because the dating sim gives you 4 options, 3 girls, 1 guy, and your main character, your main protagonist is a guy. And it has a surprising amount of detail and 5 to 7 levels depending on characters, that you go on dates, you do these certain tasks with them, and obviously you maintain your relationships. They grow with you in different ways, but you can actually technically romance all 4 of the romanceable options in one playthrough. Suffice to say, the end of the game, you do have to technically choose one. But it actually was the game that has hit me the hardest, as far as character development since Xenoblade 3, and I cannot recommend it. If you're looking for some real deep connection with the characters on screen, try Eternites. It's a short JRPG.
Wait.
And
Didn't you just say you cannot recommend it? Did you mean to say
Did
enough?
I not say enough?
You didn't say enough.
If I didn't say enough,
Okay, so it's good. It's good.
That's the standard Vilos phrase, is I can't recommend it enough. So, I mean,
Exactly.
I heard what you meant. Like
Exactly, so I was getting there.
Supplemented, yeah.
So play Eternites if you like JRPGs or if you want romanceable options, because it does explore some really great topics in an apocalyptic setting. A lot of it's derivative outside of the character romances, but it's really nice. And for somebody that is like real bad single right now, like it felt really good to play through, and it felt good to romance 2 particular people in the story.
Aw.
And if you want spoilers ever, just yell at me and I will give them to you.
Heck yeah.
It's a good time.
So that's Eternites. Fun. You said that came out last year?
Yeah, it came out middle of last year. We were hyped for it because of it showed up at one of the State of Plays, and turned out pretty exactly to what I hoped it would be.
Nice. I wonder when... you know what? Actually, I wonder when Wingspan came out, now that I'm thinking about it. And
I mean, at least sometime within the last 5 years, maybe even longer.
Splatoon was sometime in the past 5 years, right?
The very first Splatoon was in 2015, I believe.
Well,
September.
perfect. Because our topic today, which I didn't even throw in the intro at all, I was so excited to talk about Blizzing Up, is that new games are out, old games are in, y'all. The 2 of the 3, well, actually all 3 of the games that we just named are over 2 years old, which can qualify them as older games. So how relevant that all 3 of us would come to the table with that. But Vilos, let's kick it over to you. You introduced this topic to us.
Yeah, so it really has been something on my mind for a long time, but it kind of came up when Kotaku made a really great article about it. Specifically, Kotaku made an article that was 2023 data shows more people are playing older games. Obviously, there is some data behind it. We really recommend that you look up that article, where they specifically say that the video game market grew 2.6% in 2023. That's $93.5 billion in revenue in 2023. But at the same time,
Wow.
the overall playtime decreased. But at that same time, the top leaders in actual playtime, accounting for 27% of playtime in 2023, were older games: Fortnite, Roblox, League of Legends, Minecraft, and GTA 5. And so it's really interesting to hear that, actually have the data behind it. There's a whole lot of data that a lot of different sources have online, but they had a really cool data set that was interesting to see in that Kotaku article. And honestly, since we are 3 completely different game styles of play, and we play completely different types of games in general, I thought it would be interesting to get not only our perspectives on it, but how does age in a game relate to us and our styles. So honestly, I'll kick it back to Tegan for the data, because I know you've got a lot of games that you play, but again, they're completely different from how I'll do it, completely different how Sid will do it.
Yep, absolutely. That's one of the reasons I love talking to you guys about what we're playing, because like sometimes there's overlap, but most of the time we're just all freewheeling in our own, in our own corner of the room. In that Kotaku article, it's short and sweet because it's really just pulling from the straight data from this 2-year-old study. I mean, the study that's only been going on for 2 years is what I meant. But in it, it says that the overall playtime across all gamers decreased in 2023, and most of that playtime it goes into games that are older, which is considered to be 2 years or older. Most of the games I'm playing are like 5 years or older. So I definitely fall into this category. I define it as more of comfort gaming because you sink back into the thing. Maybe your friends are there, maybe they're not, but it's familiar, and you don't have to explain it to people because it's usually a big franchise that people already know very well. They said that there were 5 old games that accounted for 27% of all playtime in the whole year: Fortnite, Roblox, League of Legends, Minecraft, and GTA 5. All 5 hugely popular games, and all of them came out years, like quite a few years ago at this point. Let's see, it says 23% of playtime in 2023 was spent playing big annual sequels like the latest Madden or NBA game. So those are the newer games. So like the older ones are 27%, those 5 that I named. 23% are new things that are franchises that already exist. So it's not a new IP of any kind. It's either a sequel or like blah 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 2023. So each of those, that's about a quarter of the market just between those AAAs that I just named. And then only 8% of video game playtime across everyone in the world that the data is taken from. 8% of all playtime was new non-annual titles like Diablo 4 or Baldur's Gate 3, which are also huge AAA games. So if only 8% of players are playing these huge new established franchise games, what hope does that leave for all the indie developers in an overcrowded market trying to get their name out, their game out, so that people will play it? People are so happy being in a comfortable gaming environment that it's hard to look at this and think, oh yeah, people are trying new things. The takeaway in the data is that there are plenty of ways to succeed. You just have to stand out in certain ways, but I was surprised by that. So people have always had retro, and not even retro, but comfort games that they've already been playing for years. That's always been a big part of the gaming diet. But Vilas, as you pointed out to me when we were talking about it, that this was really establishing that we have trended back to like the peak of that so far, so that people have never been playing older games more than they are right now. So that's a bunch of numbers, that's a bunch of data. But that's in the Kotaku article. I recommend looking at it in case you can't make sense of all the numbers I just spat out. But what I did is I took the games that I have in 2024, spent a significant amount of time, more than just a few hours, playing, and I divided them into, old and new, right? So a new game is something that came out in the past 2 years. I've got 5 of them. I've got Helldivers 2 and Pal World, which both came out this year. And then from 2023, I've got Karamazoo and Lethal Company. You could say that some of the 2022 games that I played would count, but my old games, I have 9 old games that I've played, starting from oldest to newest. We've got Elder Scrolls Online from 2014. They just had their 10-year anniversary like last week.
Oh, that explains why I kept seeing commercials for it, like on Twitch or YouTube or whatever. I'd just be like, why am I getting these? I haven't searched these terms.
Right.
So they must just be like pushing the marketing for the anniversary then.
Yep, they just had a whole big thing. My partner she's sunk a ton of hours into the PS5 version and likes it, but the game itself is free, so we picked it up. Is it free? Well, the game is free. It's not like a subscription. Like you don't pay.
Is it free up to level 80 now with new critically acclaimed DLC Heaven's Ward?
That's how they get you. That's how they pull you back in. WoW does that. They're like, hey, you used to play years ago. What if you came back and got new stuff? Like that is absolutely a part of this conversation for real, because those companies know that you will come back. Like if you spend enough time in a game, I mean, look at Lizzie. Lizzie's played Elder Scrolls Online a ton, my partner, on PS5, and she likes it enough now that I was like, hey, I would, if you got a PC account, now that she has a PC, I was like, I would buy the game as well if we played it together. And so we were just talking this morning about trying to carve out some time to do that on brand new characters and everything. But she liked the game enough to essentially buy it again. I think we bought the like $60 package that has every DLC. But like I
Is there
said,
$100 package?
it was 80, but it was on sale for 60. So
Dang.
it's getting there.
Well,
It's getting
I can't
there.
participate. Sorry.
Yep, sorry.
Doesn't meet my quota.
But that's that's kind of on our plate. But that's just an example of these games that are live service games roping you back in because they're like, hey, it's the best version of the game is out right now, and you can get it for cheaper than you would have if you played it the whole time. My next game on here is Don't Starve Together, which came out in 2015. That is exactly what I'd say about that game. It's the best it's ever been. I just jumped on it a bunch this past weekend, and they're reworking characters. They just freshly added talent trees to the game, and basically a compendium, like a scrapbook they call it. So now when your character discovers things in the game, it goes into a little encyclopedia. So your character just knows it. So now I never have to go look up on a wiki what something is, as long as my character has seen it before, which I love. But that's a 9-year-old game, and I'm trying to encourage people to play, even though it's old, because it's great, because it just keeps getting better. But other games, Overwatch 1 came out in 2016. Overwatch 2, quote unquote, came out 2022. Mini Motorways is 2019. Chill vibes indie game I like. Noida came out in 2020. What do we got? Phasmophobia 2020. Halo Infinite 2021. Valheim 2021 and Loop Hero 2021. Loop Hero has a massive amount of idle time on my Xbox app. It was like, you put like 300 hours into this game last year. And I'm like, kinda. But the games I'm looking forward to later this year that fit into that old category are continuing to replay the old Halo games, which we're streaming right now on Twitch, and jumping back into Elden Ring with the DLC coming out in a couple months. So that's, I just named a ton of games, but so many of those are older. Many of them are even 4 years or older, much less 2 years or older. But they feel good. They're great games. They keep getting supported, and most of the time they don't cost me any more to continue playing with additional content. So yeah, I just wanted to pluck those out of my library to take a look at them because Valos, like you mentioned, we've all got different styles of playing. I mostly gravitate towards games I can play with people. Most of the games that I just named are multiplayer. But yeah, it's just so easy for me to find a game that I know I'm going to have a crew for because, oh, guess what? You bought the game 5 years ago. Cool. It still works. You just have to update it. And it's such an easy way to get into a game if people already own it.
And almost every one of those on your list there is ongoing to the point where it doesn't even actually have an ending. I mean, like what, 3 of them on the list? Like Mini Motorways technically does have a campaign, doesn't it? And otherwise it's just Elden Ring and maybe Valheim. I'm not sure if Valheim does.
Valheim loosely does, but I haven't played very far. I always play just to the beginning over and over.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I feel like it has an ending like Palworld has an ending, quote unquote.
right. But it's good. It's good. There's just a lot in those games to enjoy. I mean, Mini Motorways doesn't have a campaign or anything, but yeah, so many of my games are either I can play, they got to check one of a few boxes. Either I can play it with my friends, I can play it for a very short amount of time, or it's a game that is endless. So either it's a game that is short and I can beat in 5 or 10 hours tops, or it's endless, but you play it in bite-sized sections. So like Noida is a game I've never even touched anywhere near the end. Like, I don't even know. Somebody was like, how do you win Noida? And I'm like, I'm not sure. They're like, well, what are you supposed to do? Do you like reach somewhere, or do you fight a boss? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't gotten far enough to know what happens at the end, because I always die on the way to the end. But yeah, as long as it checks one of those boxes, I'm in, but yeah, I just found that remarkable. Yeah. So 9 old games, 5 new games. And kind of by my definition of like what I look for in a game, since most of the games I want to play tend to be played in short bursts, or they're just short and then you're done with them because it's like a short story. they are definitively going to consume less of my time because I'm just going to be done with them once they're finished, you know. With these older games that just last literally forever until the servers go dark in 20 years, you know. Um, it just goes on and on and on and on, and nobody has to pay for them. So anyway, that's just a lot of stuff I've been playing. Let's bounce over to one of you guys. Like those are all my gaming habits, right?
Right.
Talk about yours. What about Sid? What if we bounce back over to you?
Well, I mean, you're right in that all of these games are like recent and not, and that they're so easy to access, and that's kind of like where I get my gaming style from. Like I love going back in time and playing games that I love playing with a D. Like whether it was like when I was small or whether it was just like maybe even just a few years ago, but they just happened to be staple on, you know, my stream, for instance. It became like an instant favorite in the community. And I really like jumping back into those games. So like it's easier now, like forever with all the virtual consoles. Nintendo Switch Online, of course, has a subscription fee. We didn't have that when we had it on the Wii U or the 3DS, but you know, they're finally catching up to like the whole marketplace ideal, and it's okay because I want to give Nintendo money to give me the things that I want. I'm not like staunchly against emulators, but like I'd rather just have the game and I can take it with me. So
Yep.
I've really been jumping back into Killer Instinct most recently. There is just like that was like the birth of fighting gamer me. You know, a lot of people bit their what is it called? Bit their teeth.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say it?
Cut their teeth.
Cut their teeth. They cut their teeth.
Oh, I bit my tooth.
It's really hard to buy.
They cut their teeth on. I mean, a lot of people in my generation cut their teeth on Street Fighter Turbo 2 Edition, Champion Edition. But no, I was, you know, Donkey Kong Country is my favorite game of all time, the second one, and that's a Rare game on Nintendo. So of course, they came out with Killer Instinct Rare. I'm like, okay, I gotta play this because Street Fighter back then did really interest me. I thought it was kind of ugly. And Killer Instinct actually is not pretty, but it's aesthetically pleasing, if that makes sense. So that's
it definitely set itself apart.
Yeah, it's the pre-rendered and the backgrounds and like there was reflections on the floor of the. It's so cool. Like that technology existing back then. But I've been playing that a lot more recently. Like I would usually just play it on my SNES, which I still have from childhood, but they most recently released it on the NSO platform. So now I can just play it whenever I want, wherever I want. I don't have to be beholden to my console anymore. Bless you, console. Thank you for all your time. But it's just so fun to just jump back into that and experience the nostalgia, relive the moment that like gave birth to like my competitive spirit in like the fighting game community. But it's not just all about like the old, super old stuff like Killer Instinct and anything else on the SNES and the NES Virtual Consoles all back then. I've been playing a lot more games on the Switch, including Pokemon Unite. I've jumped back into Ninjala recently as well. These are all the staples that I was talking about earlier, like community favorites, just because they're so comfortable to play and like I know them like the back of my hand. And when I don't want to think about what I want to play, I could just jump in, get something started. And in games like like Pokemon Unite and DKO, which is another game I've been playing, there's like things to do, like quests and things that like take my mind off. Like it lifts the cognitive load about having to think about, okay, I'm playing this, but like, what do I want to do in it? Right. There's constant things to do. And it's just really nice to kind of like shut down an autopilot and play those comfort games that I'm used to playing because first of all, the nostalgia feels good. And secondly, the familiarity of it all feels really good.
Well, when you say like going into autopilot, do you mean like playing Splatoon, for example, where you're like, oh, I already have the muscle memory? Or are you talking to me even more retro? Like, I mean, like if I would say turn on autopilot, I think of like Valheim, which is a game where you just make your own fun, kind of.
Yeah. Like sandboxy sort of affair.
Yeah, but I could also see it the other way where you're like, oh, I'll just play like even a competitive game where you're like, oh, my body already knows what to do. I don't have to think because it just does it.
Right. It's more so that one because like I'll just throw on Splatoon, for example. That's a really good example. And I'm just like, okay, here I go starting a match and I'm in. I'm already in the zone and like the world falls away and like I'm in my happy place, you know? And I don't mean autopilot to detract from comfort gaming because I mean that can have a negative connotation. It's just like, you know, face roll, pub stomp, all that whatnot. I mean autopilot in the way that it's like a warm hug. It's like a warm hug for my mind because I don't have to think
Mhm.
about it. Because there's just so much to play coming out all the time. Like we have all these fests and showcases and things that are just throwing games at us. We get ads for stuff all the time. There's like sponsorships. There's anniversaries celebrating, like the ESO. Street Fighter is doing, I think, a 25th anniversary or something like that event in Street Fighter 6. And so they've got like different things going on in that. There's just so much to play all the time, and analysis paralysis is real. I don't want to have to think about what I want to play all the time, especially if I log into Steam and I see like a whole list of things that just staring at me to play. Like I had to hide my list of games that aren't my favorite games
Yeah.
because they're just teasing me, taunting me, just like play us, play us, play us, and I don't want to think about that. It's too much.
Yep.
It is funny though that outside of the NSO stuff, all of your games are microtransaction heavy, and the ones
Well,
on the Kotaku article are microtransaction heavy.
games as a service, as much as like I like to poo-poo on it, it's done a lot to breathe longevity into games that otherwise may have been left by the wayside. You know what I mean? And it definitely has its faults, which is why games such as DKO or Ninjala, Knockout City, all the games that I really like to play, those little competitive short bursts of air, have kind of like diminished in popularity over time because I feel like it's such a niche formula that to really nail it is very rare. The problem with games like as a service is that if they listen to knee-jerk reactions to anything that they do, it often ends up to being to detriment of the lifestyle of the game. So DKO, they removed the core asset of their game, which was all the party modes. The coin horde, the oddball, the King of the Hill zones, and only opted for like the knockout portion, which is just the team deathmatch versions, and then literally died, quote unquote, died. Weeks later, it just fell off. So you really have to be walking a tightrope to get the longevity that something like Fortnite might have. But games as a service, to your point, Vilos, I think is responsible for that. Like I don't really care about the microtransactions part of it all, but games as a service games tend to have um a lot of like things to do in them, such like to things to unlock that keep people wanting to play. And I think that's what I like. Is I like the not only the competitive side of it, but the cosmetics to show off my personality while I'm kicking your ass. You know what I mean?
As you do.
Oh, I definitely know what you mean after every stream.
Well, I just like like back to the original point of comfort gaming. It settles my brain. It combats executive dysfunction, and like I don't care when it came out, if it's older or if it's like way older. Like it's just nice to not have to think about what I want to play while I think about what I want to play, if that makes sense. Like while I'm playing this other game, it's a break away from all the adverts and all the other things that are like constantly inundating us and demanding our time and attention.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of the games I mentioned, Noida and Mini Motorways, when I am looking at my library, whether it's my desktop, because I have most of the games that I have installed on my desktop just so I can see them to remind me, oh, I should play these. Because some of them have an end. Like Dredge is a game that has an end. I've only played it exactly once on stream. I liked it. I've been waiting to play it again on stream, but also my stream time is more limited these days, so that's kind of my own struggle. But when I have different examples like that on my desktop where I'm like, now's not the time to play this. What do I want to play? The ones that I am just like, okay, I've already spent too long looking. I'm just going to click this. Noida and Many Motorways are that. Because both of them, Noida can get kind of crazy because you're fighting enemies, shooting spells and stuff. But both that and Many Motorways are ones where you can just go as slow as you want. Like Many Motorways just has this chill, like minimalist sound to it of cars moving around. It's kind of like Wilmot's Warehouse that we've talked about lately that I want to pick up again. Just a comfort game, just a game that's been out for a little while that's all about just going my own pace. And with Noida, like, yeah, you can pause the game to stop it, but most of the time, if you're not moving around, then you're in little danger, relatively. And that feels so nice to me because, like you said, in a world of like adverts and just like constantly being sold something on whatever screen I'm looking at, or even billboards and stuff, it's just nice to spend time in a virtual space that moves slow and I don't have to worry about being sold something.
I'm actually really surprised that Spelunky wasn't on your list anywhere.
Only because I haven't played it this year. Actually, I've been meaning to ask you, Sid, if you wanted to play some co-op in that sometime. I
Yes.
I could definitely play more single player, but I would love to play more co-op.
Yes, yes, yes.
Perfect. I bet we can find one or two more people who would join us. Because you know why?
Yeah, isn't that right,
Because
Vilos?
they already own the game.
Definitely not me.
Well, like with Spelunky, I have it on PlayStation, but it's also on Game Pass. So I know that any of my friends who have Game Pass have
Like
access
Vilos.
to this game that's been out for years, and that makes it so easy to find a group. He won't do it. He won't do it.
No.
So, but yeah, I mean, it would be, but maybe we just need to add it to the list very soon. Vilas, let's jump over to you. Tell us about your habits.
Yes, my dirty, dirty habits. So, yeah, I usually like to be that guy that doesn't, do mainstream things. But at the same time, looking at the number on my backlog, I thought it was pretty funny that 4 of the 16 games that I've completed this year so far are from 2024. So, 25% of the games that I'm playing are this year. Although that said, I didn't take into account the whole 2 years thing. So if I go back to 2 years, that does add a few more games. It's pretty much 50-50
That was
at
such
that
a nice
point.
round number, though. Quick math.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty much 50-50 at that point. But because my habits are currently, or for the past 3.5, almost 4 years now, have been to kill the backlog. It's a completely different story from you guys, right? So
Oh yeah, I don't even know what it's like to complete a game.
yeah, I mean, I'm seriously at 16 so far, and I've got at least one to do after the
Oh,
pod that will be
you've
finished before
completed.
tomorrow.
I got the numbers mixed up. I thought you like I was like, oh, he's completed 4 games this year. That's impressive. No, you've completed 16 games this year.
Yeah,
Ah,
Crazy.
yeah. So when looking back at my list, I do take into account, hey, there's this many new games that I'm really looking forward to. I need to find a space in there somewhere in this upcoming year to play this or that. So this year, I'm taking care of a shit ton of the backlog that is older games, but my oldest game on my list of completion so far is actually just from 2017. And that's pretty well the farthest back that I ever look is 5 to 7 years. It's very rare that I go past that. So I think the farthest back that I know that I'm going to play this year would be Hollow Knight, probably. And that was like 2015.
Sounds right.
Something like that. So at the end of the day, I'm going to have probably a 50-50 split on the year as far as my backlog is concerned. My goal is 1 completion per week this year. So if I'm hitting 52, then that's probably going to be between 20 and 26 games from 2023, 2024.
Crazy.
honestly, that sounds like a daunting number, but if you break it down in the way that it's 1 per week, it doesn't sound that overbearing.
Yeah, when you look at the hours per week that you have for available gaming, it's wild.
So yeah, I'm not
I-
afraid of like committing enough time. I'm afraid of committing. I'm afraid of committing myself just
in
to
general.
anything. I'm like, no, I can't. As soon as someone expects me to be playing this, I'm like, no, I'm not interested. It's like playing the piano. I liked playing piano when I was a kid, but as soon as I was expected to actually practice at home, I was like, nope, I'm good. I don't want like this anymore.
That's kind of like how, like, if I'm about to do something and then somebody asks me to do the thing I'm about to do, I'm just like, I don't want to do this now.
Now I won't.
Now I won't do this.
And I mean, I am leaving a lot of the big games on the table as of like right now on this year's journey. That's why I'm ahead of the count. I'm at 16 when we are at what week? We're at week
Don't ask me, I'm bad at math.
13. We
Yep.
are week 13 or 14 in the year. But my longest completion of the year so far has been 15 hours. That was Eternites, which technically you can get done in 10 or 12 hours. But I had no romance, everybody. Come on.
Come on.
Otherwise, yeah, I've only got 3 over 9 hours so far this year. But I've got things like Unicorn Overlord, that's 55 plus. The Final Fantasy Remake series, that's 50 plus for each of them. plenty of JRPGs. I got Wargroove 2 that I still have to get through. That's solid 25, 30 hours. Like Shin Megami Tensei 5 has some new stuff coming out. I mean, I didn't put Elden Ring on the list. I do have Armored Core 6 though. That's probably this year. That's like 40, 50 hours, I think. So I'm going to get to a point in this year that if I don't commit to some of those bigger ones, then I will feel that itch. But yeah, at the end of the day, I want to have that history off my plate for good. You know, obviously there's some older games that I'm like, you know what, I do kind of feel like replaying. You know, I feel like replaying Xenoblade 2. I shouldn't.
Careful.
But I do really feel like it.
You should definitely not do it. Like, you should really, really.
Oh, well, now I have to do it.
No, Vilos, we cannot recommend it.
Oh, enough.
That's
okay.
that's
Okay.
the
I completely understand what you're saying now. But yeah, that's my behavior, and so for me, it's kind of meshing with a lot of the people that I actually pay attention to as far as content creators go as well. I have a very specific group that largely plays JRPGs, largely plays some of the bigger games. A lot of content creators that I've been paying attention to are also trying to clear a backlog. Sometimes in very specific ways. Sometimes they're doing it because they have a genre that they want to beat. Like this year for me, it's Metroidvanias. Last year it was JRPGs. There's people like Lady Pelvic who is going back through a lot of Atlas. You'd love her. You'd love her, Sid. Don't worry about it.
But Sid, I was thinking the same thing.
She plays a lot of JRPGs, and she's going back through pretty much an Atlas specific backlog. And that hits the Shin Megami Tensei series and the Personas and stuff like that.
Is it like 1,000 hours? It's like a
yeah,
lot.
exactly. Like, well, she does, and she and
That's
a lot
not
of
a
other
backlog.
creators.
That's a back forest. That's what that is.
Oh yeah, she and a lot of other creators are doing it for very specific reasons. They're like, you know, she and some of the others that I pay attention to are, you know, essayists. They're gonna make a full feature-length size YouTube video on this. You know, I am not. So screw that. But obviously I am blogging about it. And, you know, it's something that keeps gaming fresh for me. It keeps everything a largely new experience. Because that's why I play. I want to experience the 20 different emotions that I'm not getting in my normal life. You know, there's a lot of different ways to express yourself, and gaming is mine. And so, yeah, anybody that's not one of you guys, like they're going after their backlog. That's just another very particular type, and I'd say that's really pushing a lot of that the data that Kotaku got in that article. And even just looking back over the past few years, though, like when the Game Awards season comes by, when we see who was nominated for awards, guess what? We see like between 12 and 20 games from that year that hit mainstream out of tens of thousands that release every year. And at best, we see like 5 to 8 new indies that are like, oh shit, nobody knew that was coming until, you know, March. Nobody knew that was coming until November. And there's so many games like you mentioned that, you know, with our executive dysfunction, we may just be like, you know what, I just can't. But that situation is for most of the games out there. And so like, I think for me, it's really just making sure that I'm getting as many different experiences as I can, you know, diversifying everything.
Dating women, men, everyone in between. Got to diversify.
You know, I mean, honestly, they're pretty much all going to reduce to cat girls. So like, it is what it is.
So if we zoom out a little bit, how many cat girls how many games do we really need?
Well, the answer to the first question is the limit does not exist. Yeah.
But how many games do we need? I mean, you said in less than 16 weeks you've completed 16 games. That's a tall order. If I was to think about how many games I actually need in a year, if we took all of the 2+ year old games, or if we only took if we got rid of everything except the newest titles, like from here on out, what would I play for the rest of the year starting today? I have trouble finishing games. Like I say, I like to play endless games that are both familiar and new at the same time. That's why I like roguelikes so much, because you jump in, I know all these characters and mechanics and all this stuff, but it's going to be different every time, so it still engages the creative part of my brain. So depending on the type of game, I would like to be playing more narrative games, or maybe games that even straddle somewhere in between, like Dredge. I should really play. Or like Sifu is a game that is like session based. Like you'll probably play 1 or 2 runs a day, but the game has a definitive linear path. It's not procedurally generated.
Just not a guarantee that you can actually finish it because it's fucking hard.
True, but you got to get good.
Exactly.
But I'm okay with that because it's very much like the player gets better, and it is possible. And I'm willing to put in the time as long as I enjoy the game. And I don't tend to buy games that I don't think are worth my time. There's stuff that goes on sale all the time that I'm like, will I like this? Probably. Will I have the time to play this in the next 6 months even? No. I can definitively tell you that it's not going to be high enough on my list for me to buy it. I still have a decent number of games that I own. Either I actually own, like in Steam, or I sort of own by paying for Game Pass, for a subscription. But I mean, I bet with the right games, I could get through the whole rest of the year with like 5 games. Excluding everything that I'm already playing, anything that's come out in the past, I would probably pick up a roguelike or 2. I would probably pick up a short narrative game that's like 10 hours or less. And I would probably pick up some sort of competitive endless online game, They just tend to be all I need. I like to bounce between them a whole lot. I don't like to stay, even when I love one game, I don't tend to stick with one for very long. Like we just played Content Warning, a game that just came out on April Fool's for free, so everybody has it who was on the internet that day. And am I excited for that game? Absolutely. But I'm really excited to put it in the rotation of other games like it. Lethal Company, Phasmophobia, Helldivers, sort of. That's a shooter, but it is goofy, funny, party game vibes with your friends. But it's that rotation that I really like of constantly jumping back and forth between a lot of games. So if I had a solid 5 for the rest of the year, that could probably, I could probably be good with that. But it's tough. It's tough. There are always so many games coming out, like AAA and indie games. So to choose which ones those are would probably be pretty tough if I actually had to do it. So,
I mean, I'm like the same way. Honestly, like as was noted before, all of the games that I play are usually like those kinds of games as a service, kind of endless online competitive games. I mean, the only ones that aren't are probably just the ones that I play on the Switch, even though they still are endless online, competitive games. So, I don't know. I very seldom actually buy new games when they come out.
mm-hmm.
I'm like trying to think of the last time I actually played more than like 4 games in a year.
Like completed or played, like properly played.
I think 5 is a good number.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to bump it to like 8 as like a buffer, like a safety net. But I think I'd be pretty happy with 5 as long as they're all the kinds of games that I like to play. Those ones that like kind of blend genres together and are always unique. So like Knockout City, which was a third-person dodgeball shooter, right?
Mm-hmm.
DKO, which was the world's first 3D platform fighter. Games like Bat Bap and Battle Crash, which are mobile royales. And then Splatoon, which is, in all senses, like a third-person shooter. But the mechanics of that game was what made it stand out from all of the other shooter games. Enough so to even make it beat out Halo that one year for multiplayer game of the year, shooter of the year, whatever it won. So, as long as a game is something like that, I think I'll be happy. And it's not very often that Harlow, please stop scratching on my carpet. It's not very often that games like that come out. So I think I would be set. Like the only one I could think of that's coming out on the horizon is probably, besides Battle Crash, is like X Defiant, because it still has that familiar feeling of like, Rogue Company or Rainbow Six Siege, but the way that it's merging all of the other universes of Ubisoft together and bringing in like that kind of lore multiverse mashup sort of affair, I think will make that really intriguing compared to something that's whole identity is all in like just the one game. I like the merging of the worlds, and that's going to be really cool. So I think 5 to 8 is going to be my like official answer for that question.
I'll bounce off of that, and I'm really glad that you guys did both bring up genre, but I think you both underestimated genre just a little bit. Like I definitely see where you're coming from, Sid, on the mashups that you've got, because I've watched you play many of them. But for me, I went ahead and said 10. I was very close to saying 12 games for the year, but throughout my backlog adventures, I have found, that it's not always about rushing through a game. It's not always about completing it. But if we did just say, for this hypothetical, that I had no backlog to work with anymore, it would be a different thing. For example, if I see that Hellblade: Senua's Saga is coming out, I'm like, okay, number one, there's already articles saying that it's actually shorter than the first game, but it's something that I want to treasure. I want to hold on to it. I want to get through it as thoroughly as possible, even if it turns out to be a 5-hour game. So, for the sake of the numbers, there's always going to be a 50-plus hour game that I want every year. So that one's, I'm not going to push it. I'm not going to try to get that one into 1 month. So let's just say 10 for the sake of that. And as far as genre goes, though, I need to play all those different genres. I need a visual novel. I need a puzzle game of some sort. Sometimes my needs will be met with one game. Like, I don't talk about it, but Tetris 99 is the game that I play online that's endless.
Really?
Tetris 99 is the one, and it happens to hit the puzzles and the ongoing and the competitive, right? But, at the end of the day, I still want a competitive shooter. I want a Metroidvania, I want a JRPG, and when I say I want a JRPG, I mean every game could be a JRPG. Just give them all to me. So, I want to play most genres at any given time. So if we're looking at a year like that, I think 10 suffices as far as the overall playtime, the genres that I could hit in that span of games, and honestly, we didn't even talk about it, but budget.
That's for sure.
Realistically, if I could get my budget down, 10 would be perfect. But it has not been. It has not been 10 games worth ever.
Isn't that just the biggest argument for playing older games, though? Like most game, the Sifu is a game that I knew the moment I saw it. I was like, I'm gonna love this game, and I have like when I go and beat that, it's gonna be one of my favorite games of the year. Just that one stream we did was incredible, but I knew that I wasn't ready to play it yet because my backlog was too big. So I waited until it eventually went on sale, got it for cheaper. I mean, did Sifu come out like a year or more ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and I just played it for the first time a couple months ago. With those live service games, you already own them. Or a lot of times you wait long enough and like the Epic Games Store will say, hey, as long as you log on this week, you own this thing. Same with PlayStation, as long as you got the subscription. But the budget is absolutely the biggest reason to play older games because they're so accessible. And just going on sale and stuff all the time. I pretty much buy any game that I know I'm going to play. So I don't really have a budget, but because most of the games that I play are small, old, or indie, they tend not to have a very big price tag. It's pretty... If I pay $40 for a game, I must love that game. Helldivers came out, and I was like, am I about to buy a full-price game on day one? I can't believe it. And I have had $40 worth of fun, at least, in that, and I haven't played it a quarter as much as some of my friends. So it's really, it's all case by case and stuff, but I definitely, with the indie and old games, I'm just like, oh, it's on sale for less than $12, cool, buying it. I'm not even going to think about it. That's the price of a expensive beer, So it's easy.
That's unfortunately me with some of the short games that I found that just instantly came to the backlog, because it's like, why the hell would I not? Because Switch has a surprising amount of really good $2 to $5 deals.
Yeah, you just have to wait for
And
the page to load for 5 years before
I
accessing
mean,
any
that's
of
absolutely
them.
true.
Woo.
Like,
I cannot tell you how many times I've unfortunately looked at literally every deal on the eShop, and
oh,
it's a
so how
whole
does it feel
thing.
being 70?
Dude, I once we were on our way. I was going on a trip with like a flight to meet some friends, and we were like, "Hey, we've got our Switches. Is there any game that we can play once we get to our destination that we can play together?" And I kept trying to look stuff up, and all the co-op games were the same ones that were from like 7 years ago. Like Snipper Clips is always at the top of the list. Uh, I can't even remember the other ones, but that's like always the first one. And I'm like, this was a release title. Like, surely other things have come out, but the articles online are few and far between that have that information. So I was like, okay, Nintendo's always talking about like the indie showcase and stuff. So let me go look up all of the indie games on Nintendo Switch. Well,
Oh no.
they only qualify like 70 or 80 games at any given time as indie games. And it seems like they take them off the rotation. So if you click the indie title, you get less than 100 games. So even though there are tons of indie games on the Switch, they're not labeled that way. So I did have to go through the store and go through like 80,000 titles, and I'm just scrolling and scrolling and pages and pages and pages to try to find what I wanted. It was so much work, y'all. Like, it was whack. And then every time you back out of the screen, it takes you to the top. So I had to have my phone to actually look up the stuff, so I didn't accidentally click into it. Oh man. Anyway, how did I get talking about this?
Budget.
Budget, right? Budget. Who needs them? Yeah, but
Nobody ever needs to.
nobody ever needs them. But there are a lot of reasons to play new or old games, depending on your habits. I mean, I do like that all three of us have very different habits and needs when it comes to the games that we want. We're all pretty much on board of like, oh, if I like this enough, I'm just doing it, which is a wonderful luxury to have. There's also like, if you are on a budget, I love the idea that when you have subscriptions that you're paying for any number of reasons, like Game Pass or PlayStation, when you just wait long enough. I mean, Control hit PS Plus a couple years ago, maybe, where if you had the subscription for PlayStation Online, you just own this incredible game with all its DLC. Well, Xbox just got Control with all the DLC a month ago or something. So now, if you've been paying for either of those services, you just have one of my favorite games that I've ever played. With all the DLC, faux free, asterisk, with a subscription. And it's just wonderful. I love too being able to recommend games to people when they're already going to be in their library. When a coworker's like, "Hey, have you played Grounded?" and I'm like, "Boy, have I played Grounded! Let me tell you about it." Or my friend who's like, "Oh, should I check out Diablo 4? I have Game Pass and it's on there now, so I don't have to pay $60 to try it out." I'm like, "Oh, they'll definitely try it out, even if you don't like it. It didn't cost you anything, you know." But that's what those asterisk. That's what those older games do, especially as a live service that never goes away. Truly is the gift that keeps on giving. Of course, there are lots of drawbacks. It means it's really hard for people making new games, especially indie companies, to really get the exposure that they need to make their game a hit. But that's honestly its own separate conversation, because those things don't have to be diametrically opposed. But it's complicated, and I got strong opinions on both of them, because like on one hand, I want to support all these new up and coming, bright, shiny, creative projects. But also, while I'm reading the article that tells me about how people play older games, I'm playing League of Legends, like, as I'm reading. So I'm definitely not helping anybody. I'm not changing that data, but it is what it is, It's easy to game where you've already gamed before. Well, any last thoughts before we wrap up? All right, no thoughts.
Man, I mean, I definitely
Had
have
thoughts.
thoughts, but let's share one brain cell real quick.
All right.
And go.
Arlo, you got anything?
Not even one.
She's sleeping in front of my mini fridge, which is blocking my Jack. So she's got security. That's what she's got right now.
She's blocking your pepper jack in there.
Yeah. She's looking me dead in the eye like,
What you gonna do about it?
That
What
was,
you gonna do?
that was Navi in my
I'm going to
chair.
play Splatoon about it. That's what I'm going to do.
Comfort Games, baby. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll wrap up. If you really want to follow us in the best possible place, visit our Discord, discord.gg/party-invite-show. There you can not only play and watch and chat about games, you can read about the news without a doom scrolling feed and all that stuff. It's my favorite place on the internet. We will be back with more content. You can find us on YouTube at our website. All that stuff is available through our Discord as well. We'll talk to you again very soon. I've been your host, Tegan, and this has been Vilos and Obsydianyte.
Hello, whoever I am.
Or
On
bye.
the screen. Or, yeah, well, yes, that too.